What a splendid Sunday afternoon, and I am joined by my loving co-host Karl, who is not worse than 99.9% of mankind repeating.
And I am joined by Richard, who puts himself first in the name of this podcast despite not being alphabetically correct, so, you know.
I do believe we had a debate about this once upon a time, and you're like, I'm here to support you, and I'm a friend, and I'm going to use this as ammunition later.
Something like that. But, we present Deep Space and Dragons.
And this week, we're diving right into some dragons. But before we begin, what's new in the Karlverse?
Oh, I don't know how many of our listeners would be familiar with the band Aqua.
I'm going to say 100%. Like, I'm just going to state that.
100% of our viewers? You think so?
Yes. You know what? I'm going to bet... I don't have money, but next time I see you, I will bake you fresh brownies if any of our viewers comment they're not familiar with Aqua between now and then. But if I find out that viewer's lying, they'll have to play a game with me of trading cards attached to Dark Energy discs. So make sure you're honest when you send in these comments.
Yeah, make sure you're honest. Otherwise, you might end up in the Shadow Realm. But more on point, Aqua is on tour across Canada right now, actually. And they made a stop in Saskatoon.
Wait, are you inviting me to Aqua, or are you doing the much harsher thing of telling me you went to Aqua without me?
I went to Aqua without you.
Oh!
I didn't realize you were a fan. I'm.
You would be. It's one of those things where I've never been musically literate, but that's one of those bands that was like on my first like Much Music Hit CD I had, like my first CD. So like for the sheer nostalgia value of it, I would go, and if nothing else, the novelty to say I went. But I'm not actually that heartbroken. I am excited for you though. So how was it?
It started off with a Much Music Dance Party, which was
yes.
Well, it sounds awesome, but
it wasn't.
They played music videos with relatively low quality music, and then it was like hits from the '90s, obviously.
Well, I mean, they had to make sure the quality matches the '90s. Like this sounds very. Yeah. It's like it sounds the right kind of bad. I enjoy certain kinds of bad.
But I was annoyed because a couple of the music videos were out of sync with the music.
And you're a music major. Your ear's actually well tuned. That's rough, buddy.
And then they had another band, Prozac. And Prozac was just not very good live. I don't know how they sound on their albums because I never really listened to any of their music. But their one singer sounded kind of like Weird Al Yankovic.
I mean, that's either the highest praise or the worst insult. There's no middle ground.
Well, it's just I kept I wasn't sure whether or not I should take it seriously because it's like they sounded like the Arrogant Worms or some sort of comedy band, but then they're singing serious music about how they're heartbroken that they can't afford to live in New York City with the love of their life.
I mean, to be fair, if your love of your life loves you, they don't live in New York City. You can choose love or New York. You cannot afford both.
But then Aqua themselves were pretty awesome.
Fantastic. I mean, I assume they're trending again because they announced like a live-action Barbie movie, and if Aqua doesn't do the music for that, that's just the biggest misplay in human history. Second biggest, when they called Aang Ong in the live-action Avatar. That was the biggest misplay in human history.
Yeah, because of North American source material, how do you then get your pronunciation wrong?
It was in English. There wasn't a translation. Like, there was nothing to translate. It was just in English already. Oh, but I'm glad you had concert fun times.
Mm-hmm. What's new with Richard?
So Amazon Prime Day happened, and as viewers, longtime listeners of our podcast are familiar, one of my goals in life, because I'm published through Amazon, is to try and take as much money away from Amazon as possible, so Jeff Bezos doesn't get to go to space, but he still subsidizes my education. Playing that perfect middle line. I'm not quite at Mr. Swatengu levels, but I'm getting there. So, in the spirit of Amazon Prime Day, my brother ordered an air fryer. And you may think to yourself, Yeah, of course, 32-year-old man, super excited because he gets a new instrument. But I'm a 32-year-old man who is super excited I got a new cooking instrument. So,
Mm.
you know how whenever you make matzo sticks in the oven, they're just bad? It's just a fact. Like, they're just soggy, they're unbalanced, the bottom is... Yeah. Now, this air fryer, we went through our checklist. Here's what didn't work in the air fryer super well. Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Here's what did work amazingly well. Chicken wings. It like charred them a little bit. It baked the sauce right in. They were delightful. Matzo sticks worked real well. Chicken tenders worked real well. Onion rings worked real well. Pork chop worked pretty well. Bacon, not so much. So like, air fryer. Yeah, don't you want to have an air fryer party with me where we just air fry things and see if they're delicious? Like, that's just good times.
I hadn't really thought about doing that. My girlfriend does have an air fryer, so she likes to make potatoes in the air fryer because they crisp up nicely and it like spins them around. And
yeah, right now my brother's attempting to make grilled cheese in the air fryer.
But
right? Like, I know it's dark, and if this situation was flipped, I'd be taunting you relentlessly. I'm aware of this, but in my core, I need to know if it'll work. Right? Like,
if you can have okay, well, when do you just have a baked cheese sandwich? Like,
this is how, and I want to know if a baked cheese sandwich will be good.
Because like an air fryer is essentially just a mini convection oven.
But it's like a pressure convection oven because it definitely evenly crisps things, which is why it's relevant. Like putting pork chops in there because you don't have the bottom up heat, you get a different skin on it than if you cook it in the oven conventionally.
Right.
Look at me flexing my 10 years of culinary. But yeah, so the air fryer, it's kind of funny because people are like, are air fryers really better for you than deep fryers? I'm like, yes, they are. Also, I would have a deep fryer. It's not that I got the air fryer because I don't want to deep fry things. It's that deep frying is a logistic nightmare. If they gave me a deep fryer that worked as well as an air fryer, I'd probably still deep fry things. Like if I just had you put some tater tots in a basket and then deep fried on my counter and I had no cleanup or effort with that, yeah, of course I do that. I'm only trying to live to a certain age. We discussed the whole hot dog versus life expectancy thing, and there's a fair number of hot dogs I would consider to be acceptable. There's a fair amount of lifespan I would trade. So, so far, air fryer experiments.
My parents have a deep fryer. It has a built-in filter, so it's like once you're done frying your stuff, you just wait for it to cool off, and then you like flip a switch, and it runs it through the filter, and it's like you can reuse the oil like 10 times before it says you need to replace it.
You've seen my apartment. Like, there just isn't the logistics for having a deep fryer. Plus, I have a cat and I'm me, so the odds that I kill myself with a deep fryer are too good. Like, I should just not be allowed near boiling oil despite having done it for a decade. Like, just now are all my wounds healing?
We did agree that you're probably gonna have like some sort of like horrible mishap and slip and fall into the street because of your lack of activity for the past like 2 years.
Yeah, I've been taking yoga classes. I've been doing 7-minute workouts on my phone daily. I'm trying to get in the same shape as my yoga instructor, who is a decade younger than me. Like, I want to at least be in the same physical shape as them, so I don't feel completely useless. So I have actively been trying to like not die that way after this podcast episode. It was slightly eye-opening.
Well, I mean, get a deep fryer, and then you won't die in the way that you don't want to die.
I mean, the way I want to die right now is make it to the singularity, be plugged into sword art, and then eventually just pass out peacefully mid-video game, leaving several friends to die in a raid. It's great. I'm just saying it'd be so funny to be like trapped in the murder video game, and you're already 100, and you're like, this is amazing. What do I care? It's like, oh, you just peacefully zap my brain and I die, but if I win, I conquer this virtual world? This is great.
Well, speaking of video games, our topic for today is the video game franchise of Monster Hunter, yes, no?
Yeah, so you know what's fascinating about Monster Hunter? When I talk Monster Hunter to people, they either have 3 opinions. 1, yeah, Monster Hunter, awesome, let's go play Monster Hunter. 2, oh, I've always wanted to get into that game, but it just looks like too much and too complicated. Or 3, that seems like a man game. And I'm like, what even does it even mean? So, first off, the first Monster Hunter game I played was for the Nintendo Wii, which was Monster Hunter 3 Try, which feels like a really redundant name, and I think I'm butchering it.
Well, I think it was just released as Try, but then when they released their Ultimate version of it, it was released as Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate.
Okay. So, to simplify Monster Hunter, so they figured out the parts of a video game that give you dopamine hits, and then just constructed it into a perfect circle. So you get a dopamine hit when you kill an enemy. You get a dopamine hit when you get something good on a loot table. You get a dopamine hit when you build a cool outfit. So the entire game is kill a boss. We don't need many enemies. They don't give you those sweet, sweet chemicals in your brain. You kill a boss. You make armor that's cool looking, and then you use that armor to kill the next boss. People be like, well, that sounds like a boring endless cycle. I'm like, no, that's called a gameplay loop, and all video games run this way, and you're playing Animal Crossing right now. Which is like the exact opposite gameplay loop, where it's like, what if the game was only side quests? But besides me dipping on Animal Crossing, which to be fair, I didn't get into Animal Crossing because most games like that, I would need friends to be in it with it. Because if I can't gloat, what's the point?
Yeah, so, like Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon are kind of similar concepts, right? Where you're like trying to build up your village, basically.
Because it's been proven that things like Minecraft, me and you will go through, build awesome towns and get into it, if you have someone to flex your creations to. And a lot of games now will have these crafting building elements, like, I was playing this Chimera World one with Panda today, which could be a full podcast episode. So imagine you will, someone builds a really cool game where you can have your pet bear fight an antelope and get its horns. By consuming it to become a battle antelope, you can then ride up on a mountain to fight a dragon.
Huh.
So that sounds awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I spent 2 hours on Fetch Quest doing basic crafting things like cut down a tree to build a crafting table, cut down a tree to build a blacksmithing. I'm like, you have a really cool game. The character selection's a wheel and has everything from bear people to squid monsters on it.
Okay.
Like, this game for a free game has these really cool, big, sweeping ideas, and then forced me to go through the same tutorial that all those open-world creaty games have. Put down 7 floorboards. Put up 4 walls. This is your house. Build a bed. You can sleep at your house. I'm like, guys, this tutorial. I've played this game before. It was called No Man's Sky, and before that it was called, and then I can just go in that, like, infinite regression back in these similar games till I hit Minecraft. Which ironically didn't have a tutorial at all. Minecraft didn't care at all if you understood it. But to loop back to our actual topic, Monster Hunter is the inverse. They're like, hey, earlier Monster Hunters were like, here's some fetch quests, here's how you hit a Bambi to get a horn to make a potion. I'm like, but Godzilla, we could climb on Godzilla's back and mine it. Yeah, but don't you want to learn about how to craft bugs? No!
Well,
no,
yeah,
I don't.
So, I mean, early Monster Hunter quests are pretty mediocre because, like...
I went through the entirety of Star Trek Voyager in the background, going through the original Monster Hunter Tries tutorials.
Go collect some mushrooms. Go kill tiny bugs. Go mine enough stuff. Like, it definitely has a lot of very side questy stuff right at the start. Although more modern Monster Hunters have just kind of been like, actually, you've played this game before, so we're just going to give you a boatload of resources to start.
Yeah, to follow up on that, Monster Hunter is a game where each new one has actually been better, unlike Pokemon that capped at... Oof, how far back do I want to say they capped? Like, I feel like I could say Gold and Silver is actually where it peaked, but...
You think so? Because Diamond Pearl...
I know, like, a good argument can be made for Diamond Pearl. So, anyway, the point is they peaked, though. Like, Pokemon Sword and Shield is not better than any other Pokemon game. Like... I can't think of a Pokemon game it was better than. Arceus was awesome because they went a different route. But to swing back to the topic at hand, Monster Hunter's like, okay, we're going to be a Nintendo game and not be overly concerned about graphics. Instead, you're like, yeah, we're on Wii U, we're on Switch, and you're running around, killing monsters to build cool outfits to kill more monsters, dopamine's going. But Monster Hunter ran into a couple gameplay problems that take away some of the joy from me. So first is because it's that cycle of the more you play, the more stuff you get, the more you can play.
Mm-hmm.
There is no catch-up system. If you play with a friend who is lower level than you, they do not gain things faster than the friend you're playing with. You just get to be worse forever. So we end up in a situation where Karl is in completely covered, custom, ice-proof, dragon-resistant armor with a lance and a shield. Be like, I will defend you, we will kill this. And then the enemy will fire an attack at us so devastatingly powerful that I stand behind him, he blocks the shot, and the shockwave kills me. I died from the pressure wave of the enemy attack. I got Yamcha'd. Straight up Yamcha'd. So, the downside to that game is... Right? It's like, man, we tried to play together, we tried to coordinate, but I just died. But for Monster Hunter Tri, when we had like 4 players on consistently every night, you could get like beautiful strategies. Because you could learn monsters' patterns, you could lure them into traps. We were hitting points where we'd watch Quapeko jump off a cliff, and he'd land on my charged mallet to his face. And also, Monster Hunter just had fantastic enemy design. They're like, let's take a mythological creature and make it part dragon. And, as I mentioned before, the deep space and dragons. I like deep space. I love dragons. Maybe that's why it's Karl and Richard. I like Richard. I love Karl. Just how I sequence things. You don't need dessert first.
That
was some great backpedaling on my part. Like 10 out of 10. That was a convincing bullshittery.
But yeah, you're right. Monster Hunter does have some of the most interesting monster designs, like the Nargacuga, which is like a panther bat dragon,
or my beloved Toby Dagashi, where they're like, you know what's great? Let's make an electric eagle's dragon squirrel. And there's just like, if I build a D&D table and put animal attributes on and roll the dice, I wonder how many thousands of times it'd take to make something as awesome as Toby.
Toby Kadachis are pretty awesome.
And I think what made Monster Hunter really interesting, though, is they made these pseudo-animals in a pseudo-environment, and you could actually exploit that. Which I've never seen a game do as well, where like logic actually helps you win. Hey, it's a fire dragon. Maybe roll in the water. Maybe shoot out its wings so it falls. Maybe launch dung in its face so it doesn't eat you. Like, why would you eat someone covered in poop? That's the strategy in Monster Hunter, and it's valid.
Yeah, Monster Hunter definitely does have a pretty incredible range of strategies.
What I really like... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to comment on how, like, Monster Hunter Tri was a great game, got us into it. And then Monster Hunter 4 was so much better than Monster Hunter Tri that I would never even go back to play Monster Hunter Tri because, like, the mechanics are just so inferior. And so then they started adding even more layers to strategy, though, where, like, you could jump off cliffs to try and mount monsters and stuff like that, and it was just like, that's...
What's interesting is the console choice for Monster Hunter 4 was a bit of a problem. It's like, hey, do you want to attach an accessory to your DS to have a second analog stick that should be there? So weirdly, my problems with that first generation of Monster Hunter were completely technology-based rather than game-based. Because at this point, our lives had already desynchronized, so we couldn't play it consistently. So you were doomed to be higher level than me. Which is fine. Doomed to be higher level than me. But the biggest issue was I just didn't have like good equipment to play it. My eyes aren't great and my hands are stupid. So a skill-intensive game is a weakness.
I definitely did purchase the accessory too for my 3DS.
And then we get to the Wii U era, and the Wii U is its own. Just gonna pause to say Xenoblade Chronicle X is a game that no one will ever give the respect it deserves because it was exiled to the Wii U.
Well, you never know. Maybe they'll give us a deluxe edition for the Switch.
And I'd actually drop $80 for that. That's crazy. You know how much I complain about paying full price for remastered games? Anyway. So then we get to Monster Hunter World, where they're like, hey, we're going to put this on all the big consoles with nicer graphics. And it was just kind of like a meh Monster Hunter. But then they like learned, and then Monster Hunter Rise. Monster Hunter Rise. So when a game asks, you know what, do you want cat companions? I go, yes. Like, how would you like to ride on the awesome ninja dog from Tales of Vesperia? I'm like, wait, what? Here's my money.
And then the ninja wire bugs are just like so much fun.
It's like, you know what almost any video game benefits from? A grappling hook. I've never seen a game get worse by adding a grappling hook. They only improve things.
Well, I mean, the best part about the wire bugs is that you can, like, Spider-Man around. You know how, like, Spider-Man swings through New York City by attaching his webs to
Nothing.
Things that aren't the things that are off screen.
Yeah, nothing. Come on. We know how it works. We're not children here. We know the webs go into hot air balloons at the end and he swings off those.
He actually shoots out hot air balloons?
Seems legit.
That'd be wild.
I also enjoy the idea that they're going through interdimensional portals and grabbing on walls in timelines that have walls there. But yeah, so Monster Hunter Rise just triples down, but I will say, because all they've done is add things to their game, and other than removing underwater battles, they haven't, like, trimmed it any. It makes sense that new players are daunted by this game.
Well, I will say one of the things that Rise did better than the previous iteration of the game is, in the previous iteration of the game, they introduced styles where each weapon, and there's like 13 weapons, had like 5 styles, and each style was slightly different with the moveset. And then for Monster Hunter Rise, they actually did end up trimming that down and simplifying it so all the styles were basically available.
But it's one of those things where, for a new player, it's like, okay, I killed a lizard. I can make a sword, a shield, 3 kinds of guns, a hammer, twin swords, a hat, pants, a skirt. And it's just like, basically to play Monster Hunter, you need to find someone who's already played Monster Hunter to guide you through Monster Hunter. Just jumping into it itself would be almost impossible.
Well, yeah, like when we played Monster Hunter Tri-a-Lot and their skill system, where it was like when you got to certain thresholds of points in a particular skill, the skill would activate to a certain degree. So, like, if you have 10 in a skill, it'd be active. If you have 15, it would be upgraded. And if you got up to 20, it would be upgraded twice. And it was always super frustrating playing with randos, and then seeing them, and it's like, oh yeah, you got a cool looking set of armor, but you only have like 9 in every skill. So, like, you're not actually utilizing half the game. It's like you don't even know what you're doing. And yet they probably have hundreds of hours because they've been grinding to get the parts they need to build their armor.
Well, what's funny about games in general, and I say this a lot about co-op games, especially when I play with my brother, who is, on the competitive scale, about 7 notches above me. Like, if the scale had 5 notches, he's an extra 2 past it. We're starting to get almost into, like, troubling territory. So for a co-op game, you can't actually be unbalanced or broken in a co-op game. You're just playing together with your friends, right? Like, the theory is Monster Hunter doesn't need to be a balanced game because you're not competing. That would be the theory. But unfortunately, you do feel like you're not playing your weight because Monster Hunter genuinely believes that if Aaron dies 4 times, we all lose. So it has a bully the bad player mechanic built in, that the weakest player with the worst stuff is most likely to die, and then if they die the most, the game incentivizes you to bully them. So you want to be around the same levels so you don't cost the team the victory. And even if it's just me and you playing, you're not going to bully me if I die 3 times because your armor is made out of solid platinum, encrusted with the jewels from the heart of a Gen Moron, mined from the colossal worm, and then infused with the lightning of Elatrion? Anyway.
Oh, Jesus Dragon.
So, the idea that you're like, yeah, I killed a literal god and I'm wearing their hat, and I'm like, I have bug armor because it was cheap to start. And then I die 3 times. You're like, well, it's not your fault, you're just inferior. I'm like, well, thanks, Karl. That's somehow worse than you being mad at me. Because it's like, no one wants...
I was pretty upset when I actually blocked the laser beam, and then it still went through my shield and killed you, even though it did no damage to me.
It's so rough. It's like a reverse Piccolo. It's bad, man. Like, if Piccolo jumped in front of Gohan and Piccolo was fine and Gohan was just turned to dust, how bad would Mr. Piccolo feel? It's just rough, man. Like, I get it, but one thing that always bugs me about games is the idea that I have to play the game long enough to be allowed to play the game. So as I have less and less spare time, and with my clinically diagnosed ADHD, the idea that I would play enough Monster Hunter on my own to catch up to you just isn't happening.
Yeah.
Unless they suddenly give it a very, very compelling story, which, let's be honest, Monster Hunters doesn't have story. Except the game Monster Hunter Stories, which is just a better Pokemon, somehow.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, their story always kind of seems to be this somewhat similar, where it's like there is some sort of mysterious phenomenon causing the monsters to go slightly more aggro than normal.
Right? And, like, I feel like this is going to sound weird as much as I hate romantic subplots, but Monster Hunter has such a thin story, I'd settle for a romantic subplot. Like, that's still more than it's giving us. Like, they're not going to give us the Empire Strikes Back in Monster Hunter. They're just not. It's not going to be a Full Metal Alchemist thing where all the different hunters are killing things to build a giant transmutation circle and you're needed as a sacrifice, which is why they helped you at certain times and then killed your friends. We're not getting that. Unless we write it. But that's the thing, is the game doesn't care. It's just about the dopamine hit. And Monster Hunter Rise has done everything in its power to let us just play together. They've basically separated one player and co-op into separate games almost, where if you don't touch one player at all, you'll be fine. Where before they were inherently linked. And it's weird to say, but like I'd almost prefer a Monster Hunter. Like I prefer the modes where you just go in an arena and pick your gear and just get a play. Rather than trying to collect things. It's kind of a weird thing. Because I like the challenge of killing a super boss. But I hate farming in my video game.
Monster Hunter is a game that's all about farming.
Both literally they have a farm and figuratively for hunting specific components. But all in all, they do a lot well with that series. And if my takeaway is not going to be, hey, you should go get Monster Hunter and play it. It should be, hey, find 3 friends, all get Monster Hunter, and play it together. Because it is a great experience if you make it an experience. But I've started to hit that point in my life where if I want to start back up Monster Hunter with you, we'd literally have to pick a day of the week and schedule it for Monster Hunter Day, make a separate account each that are only for playing together, so we can stay on the same level. Which, I mean, realistically, we could do on a stream whenever we wanted, because we both just have that game and have completely forgotten.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you had Monster Hunter Rise.
Yeah, I do. I think. Huh. Either I do or Jeremy does. Somebody has it.
Makes sense.
Although a new Digimon game comes out next week, and I'm super excited for that.
A new Digimon game?
Oh yeah, they made a game that's half Digimon, half Persona, and half Fire Emblem.
Huh.
So it plays like Fire Emblem with the social link system of Persona, but is Digimon. So the idea is like how you befriend people in your narrative choices and the visual novel parts affect how your Digimon evolves, because each person has their own Digimon. So like, for example, say Aaron was one of the characters on our Digimon team. If you're like me and give Aaron the props he deserves for being alive, jacked, and healthy despite his physical limitations, he'd love that speech and his Agumon would turn to a Greymon. And if you're like, hey Aaron, but seriously, you're a deadbeat, get off my couch, he would get a Skull Greymon instead. For a completely unrelated hypothetical. So, that sounds like it'll be fascinating. So I'm looking forward to that one a lot, because honestly, I almost prefer visual novels to games at this point, unless they like actually challenge my brain. Or they're fun co-op times. Like things like the new Ninja Turtle game look super interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to find games that have both couch co-op and online co-op, though.
Yeah, because like it's like our preferred genre is couch co-op, but they don't add that online feature to things. Because me and you are all about that couch co-op life without them giving that functionality. But I will say, Monster Hunter just got his new DLC. Panda's been downloaded on Steam to play with his buddies because it's out on PC and Switch now. And he's liking it. He's like, oh yeah, this was worth buying on a flash sale for $10. I am thrilled. I'm like, that's fair. $10 for Monster Hunter's like... If you're judging your video game based on how square footage, Monster Hunter is super dense content. It will entertain you for at least 80 hours. And that's not doing any grinding or repetition. You could just kill that many different things and go that many different places.
There are definitely a lot of places. And Rise, again, even more so than previous iterations, because they took the more open world, like single area mechanics from Monster Hunter World, and combined it with the Monster Hunter Ultimate franchise, which was primarily the Nintendo and handheld versions, it just created a very expansive and large game.
And they did so many micro improvements. They're like, okay, we want people to still mine, but you only have to push the button once. Okay, we want people to be able to collect plants and use them, so we added in stage buffs. Okay, everyone wants to watch two monsters fight, so we just put that in. If two monsters that hate each other see each other, they'll just fight to the death in front of you. I'm like, wait, what? Thank you. You listened. You watched Godzilla, and you actually listened to the moral of the story.
Let them fight.
That's all we ever wanted. So, yeah, honestly, I'd play Monster Hunter with you again. It will be on the table in the future for sure. We may stream it, we may not. Depends what comments we get from our loving fans. But I think it's time to wrap up here and move into our random question of the week.
Oh.
So as I find because I keep it on a notepad file because I'm smart, while I look up our random question of the week, I don't know, start advertising for us. Give me a second here.
Well, as mentioned, we also stream. We usually stream on Tuesdays at this point. Who knows when you'll actually be listening to this? Maybe we're streaming every day in the future. Who knows?
Oh man, what a future that would be! We could just
for the time being. You should join us for our streams if you enjoyed our random conversations, because we play random games and just talk.
And also, with the Waltz of Blade 2, the Minuet of Sorcery being in pre-production, I've decided to give out chapters 1 through 7 of the Waltz of Blades for free on Wattpad. So sending you random questions to get your digital deluxe copy. But if that's just not good enough for you, I've given you enough book to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I've read a third of this book. This is a real good book. It's a pretty good advertisement. That's like giving you the first everything up till G rank in Monster Hunter for free. It's a pretty good deal. And with that, here's our random question, and our viewer will be happy to receive, or listener, Quantum State, will be happy to receive their digital deluxe edition. This is such a good random question, though. What is your perfect breakfast? Isn't that just a beautiful question? No existential dread, just straight up throw you on the spot, see what happens. You want me to take this one first while you deeply consider?
Well, yeah, sure, let's see what your perfect breakfast is.
So, a little spoiler to our viewers. When I nearly drowned in a lake, I acquired a parasite that turned milk into poison when I was a kid. See more on that on a later episode, maybe, probably not. So, I can't do cereal and milk, because my body now thinks milk is poison, which, to be fair, it kind of is. Like, no one's particularly good off drinking dairy milk. So, I can't cereal. Which, as a side effect, has led me not typically eating a lot of traditionally breakfast foods. Like, my body can't really consume eggs because I just don't care for them that much. I'm not a big fan of eating dense carbs. Like, I'm not going to French toast or pancake. That's a dessert food. Like, 6 p.m., perfect time for pancakes and ice cream. 8 p.m., even better for waffles and chocolate sauce. But 8 in the morning, no. So realistically, my perfect breakfast, is I get an everything bagel, toasted, just enough carb for its coming purpose. I put herb and garlic cream cheese on it, maybe cucumbers and bacon. And these fats and carbs exist for one purpose. And that's my actual breakfast, my coffee. And everything else is specifically treated to get the caffeine from my stomach into my blood as efficiently as possible to start my day. So my perfect breakfast is, in fact, a bagel and coffee, and then I eat an actual healthy lunch.
Sensible. I was actually going to ask whether or not, like, is it like breakfast style food and you can just eat it whenever, or if it's
I assume it's literally
the fast after you wake up?
I think it's literally breaking the fast, because if it was a hypothetical breakfast food, as I mentioned in my mini rant, oh man, like an 8 p.m. Denny's trip is when I can enjoy breakfast food, but my body's just not up for it when it wakes up.
Well,
so let's go breaking fast.
I really do enjoy breakfast burritos.
Nice.
I mean, it's kind of like I'm like a one dish kind of person, like slow cooker or
10-liter bucket of lasagna sauce.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like or lasagna, like it's a one dish thing where it's just like,
oh yeah, lasagna is the best cake.
um, and so it's like you take your eggs and you just like mix in hash browns, mix in some peppers, mix in some like Italian sausage, and then you scramble them up, and then you just put it in a nice little tortilla, and it's like it's portable, it's delicious, it's full of nutrition, and it's a nice single dish kind of meal. Where
That is very fair. I'm going to follow up on that a little bit. So back when I worked at Boston Pizza, my original breakfast was still the bagel as declared. But at noon when we'd open, I would do up a breakfast pizza that was like horseradish mayo as the base, matzo cheese, Italian sausage, diced peppers, diced hard-boiled egg, bacon, tomatoes, cheddar, salt and pepper, cook. So I basically deconstructed a breakfast wrap and put it on a pizza. Because I got a staff meal every day, and I'm like, hey guys, praise me, have a slice of breakfast pizza. And it was like noon. So I'm definitely on board for the most part. I just find like runny eggs or just don't quite do it for me. So the idea of like the pictured breakfast of here's your bowl of cereal, your horse vitamins, your eggs, your entire cantaloupe, like that's just... My body is like a rodent. I'm not designed to eat in large bursts. I need a nibble all day. And with that, thank you everybody for tuning in and sending your random questions of the week. I mean, this was a great question. Like, we've got to some really strong questions about like the nature of humanity and our ethics and whether or not we'd run someone over with a trolley. But sometimes breakfast questions are where to be.
I do like breakfast questions.
And have good luck hunting those monsters out there. With the way this year's been, I'm expecting Rathalos soon. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.